Hello everyone, welcome to the Red Channel. The topic of today's video is the Aprilia RSV4 1100 Factory 2025. Yes, I already know what you're thinking. The usual Aprilia RSV4 updated to Euro 5 Plus and little more. In fact, amidst the great hullabaloo that is EICMA, the RSV4 and also its sister, the Tuono, which we discuss in another video, might have seemed like updated bikes, but only marginally. But no, because in Noale they have thoroughly revamped the RSV4 project, going well beyond the appearance shown by a new aerodynamic package and Brembo HyPure brakes. I'll start with the engine, and by saying that currently the Aprilia V4 is the most powerful Euro 5 Plus homologated production engine on the market. We're talking about 220 horsepower at 13,500 RPM with a torque of 127 Newton meters at 10,800 RPM. This power is achieved mainly thanks to the introduction of new throttle bodies that increase from 48 to 52 millimeters and the use of a new exhaust valve that, through different strategies, has further filled the torque curve as if it was needed. A phenomenal engine, therefore, placed in a chassis that, however, does not see changes, rightly so I would say, to the now legendary aluminum twin spar frame, fully exploiting all its potential. Not everyone will remember, in fact, that the RSV4 frame has always been the only one to allow the engine height to be varied within it thanks to specific up slots. Well, the Aprilia technicians sought greater maneuverability and stability by working precisely on the engine position, first of all in the frame. Now the engine is positioned 5 millimeters higher, but also by raising the pivot mount by 2.5 millimeters and changing the chassis dimensions since the steering is more open than before. The offset of the new steering plate mat, which is much lighter, increases by 2 millimeters and the trail decreases slightly. Everything else is confirmed. The swing arm with the lower stiffening truss and the suspensions, which on the factory model are the Olin Smart EC 2.0. Aprilia has therefore remained faithful to what was previously installed. You might wonder why these modifications were made. The answer is simple. Modern superbikes, thanks to the introduction of wings, have completely changed the load on the front wheel during braking and acceleration. And being able to brake and enter the bike into corners more forcefully has allowed for the pursuit of different and more effective chassis dimensions. In the case of the new RSV4 2025, the wings have a 6% reduced air resistance and produce forces that converge precisely at the wheel asphalt contact point. One of the major innovations introduced by the RSV4 2025, however, well hidden by the fairings, is the Baco's new APRC control unit, which is more efficient. For those who might not remember, Aprilia has always developed its control electronics in-house, being one of the first to offer advanced control specifically on the RSV4. Today, it takes it to a new level, further refining the controls to become predictive and adding sophistication. This is the case with the anti-wheelie, which can be set based on the rider's weight, for example, and can have an adaptive mode that adjusts to the riding style, learning how you ride and then adapting. Or more importantly, the corner-by-corner system that activates with the race pack and allows using GPS to set controls and setup for each curve. A true world first that I am really curious to try. But today we probably won't test it since it's going to rain. Here we are. The day ended badly, as you can see, since it started raining again. But it started off very badly, almost to the point where we couldn't ride, because it was raining so hard this morning. But in the end, we even managed to do a session with the Power Cap 2. So let's say we brought the Aprilia to more adequate performance levels, even though the track never really dried completely. It was kind of half and half. In short, we'll definitely need to revisit the topic later on. Also because there are some aspects of the electronics that I haven't been able to explore yet. But let me go in order. Let's say we started with a downpour with the rain tires this morning. The track was in a really critical condition in terms of grip, because cars had been running on it. And there was the car rubber from yesterday. So in some parts like Luco Poggio Secco, Materassi, the grip was really low. But I take home some good feelings. Also because then it started to dry up and we managed to do a session that was almost dry. First of all, the ergonomics haven't changed at all. the bike has remained the same. Something I would have liked to see in the evolution of the Aprilia, but I realize it's not that simple, because this is an evolution, not a revolution of the project. It's the modification a bit here in the fit area with this curve that is quite sharp, and which we also pointed out during our 2022 comparison as are a bit annoying when you ride all day. The tank is very well made in terms of leg support during braking, and from that point of view it is an excellent support for the ergonomic triangulation of the bike. When you're hanging off, so exposed, leaning out to make the turn, this little edge over time, by the end of the day you can feel it. I'm going quickly because it's starting to rain. In these very critical situations, because we're talking about truly very critical situations, obviously if you have a bike that's difficult to ride, it puts you in a lot of trouble. What I managed to find instead, in my opinion, and then it was, let's say, confirmed when I was able to do the session on dry ground, is, in my opinion, a significantly improved throttle management. I remember that the one from the comparison was quite abrupt in response. With a somewhat violent engine, here they have filled the torque curve, but when you transition from the engine brake, which is very well calibrated, I tried both engine brake 1, which is freer, and engine brake 2, which is a bit more closed, but the engine calibration seems really well centered to me. When you go from 0 to taking the throttle back in hand in the first 10 to 15 degrees, you have a simpler bike management than in the past. And this is no small thing, because it makes life easier for those who ride this bike. But when you then go to ask it for what it can truly give, it has an incredible thrust. The engine is really fierce. I don't think there are engines this fierce even among its competitors, because from 10 onwards, the thrust, the torque it delivers to the rear tire is truly incredible. However, that management has been refined. The power delivery, which in my opinion has also been positively influenced by the new exhaust valve strategy in the previous version, when it opened, caused a very noticeable abrupt increase in torque, which now doesn't happen because this opening, this change in power delivery is much more seamless. So if I had to use a definition to describe the throttle management of the new Aprilia RSV4 2025, I would use this term: seamless. Another point in favor that I really liked is definitely the gearbox, which I've always liked the Aprilia gearbox, but here it works even better both when shifting up and down. Very smooth, always precise. You can clearly feel what the foot is doing, so the gear engagement. And downshifting are super fast. So let's say, in my opinion, it has made a nice step forward, and the technicians and engineers confirmed to me that they have worked a bit on this phase. So let's say that the work done on the RSV4 2025 is to make the bike not only more powerful and more electronic, because there are more controls than before, but also, obviously, as is the path that everyone is somewhat taking, a bike that is a bit more manageable. I repeat, in these particular situations where we also change the tires, which are not the original equipment, finding a bike that has adapted well and blended well with the set of tires, both rain and then with Pilot Cup 2, I must say that it quite positively surprised. The modifications made to the chassis are in the right direction, in my opinion. Of course, I mean, it's not like they make bikes to make them worse, because I found the bike very stable in braking, much more connected with the rear. So much so that here at San Donato, I was able to press quite significantly with the rear brake, and the bike never goes into uncontrolled slide. You can still stop it very, very well. The braking system has improved, especially in terms of the brake lever distance, which you may remember I had pointed out was too far even in the closest position. With the HyPure, in my opinion, a step forward has been made. But I had already tried these on the Ducati. In short, they confirm what has been done well, but overall the chassis has slightly improved the speed in direction changes. But above all, it has provided a lot of stability during braking. When you accelerate, the bike shakes a little less, so it settles a bit less, allowing you to exit the curves better, and this is where the electronics, which I like, come into play. I started this morning with the traction control set very high at 8, but the bike wouldn't even go straight. Then I gradually lowered it to 5, to 4, in short, until I reached the level that I liked. The only thing I feel like pointing out is that the wheelie control, even at level 1, is still a bit intrusive when it brings the bike down. However, rightly so. Speaking with the technicians, and this is the part we couldn't explore today, you can still fine-tune it by adjusting the weight more precisely, or by changing the weight class, then using the, let's say, adaptive configuration,
which we didn't use today for obvious reasons, because objectively there wasn't even the possibility. Since with just one session pushing a bit, you can't really adjust 1,000 settings. In terms of electronics, therefore, this bike, like all Italian ones, let me say with a bit of pride, is really well equipped. And talking a bit with the guys from Aprilia, I said that in my opinion, since they are so good at developing electronics, I would see that feature, the front to rear system, which when you release the brake sends a bit of brake off to the rear to help you close the curve, fitting well. How come here? Having said that, the engine brake is very well calibrated anyway. So what do we take away from this very, very complicated day? We take away an Aprilia that, despite the belief that the updates were of minor importance, has indeed made another evolutionary step. Let's put aside the horsepower, the torque, in short, that only matters up to a certain point. In my opinion, in terms of electronics, there's a lot of interesting stuff here now. Unfortunately, I haven't tried, as I mentioned, to adjust with the weight, and I haven't properly tested the corner by corner. We'll come back to it, because in my opinion, they are two, let's say, very high-level electronic features. However, the bike seems to me to have a slightly broader coverage than usual. As you know, as I always say, when you set up the Aprilia like a violin, it's a war machine. When you go a bit out of its range, it gives you a bit of trouble. Today, in this situation where we went from slicks to power cap 2, from dry to mixed conditions to wet, without too many setup changes, I always found a chassis that responded well. Then, of course, when you put to shave off the last few seconds, and we didn't do that today, maybe other issues will come up. But I would say that from Mugello, that's all. Now, it has stopped raining again. But anyway, everything is wet, so it's time to go home. I would say, let me know here in the comments what you think about the Aprilia RSV4 2025. Was it a sufficient step forward for you to maybe win one of our comparisons? Who knows if we'll be able to organize it? Let's hope so. I'll be waiting for you down here in the comments, and we'll see each other in the next video.